Hey guys, Crossflux here with my next Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile. Today I'm looking at an archetype that is composed of mermaids, idols, magical girls, and has a pun for a name. That is more than one way to get me to check out your playstyle. That's right, today I'm giving Marincess a try. Most of you may know that I prefer control decks, but this one is more of a combo deck. This isn't really up my alley, but hopefully I have the skill to pull it off. Unlike other combo decks I've seen, these guys, or gals, have quite a bit of recursion and comeback potential. This means that if my board is broken or I screw up my combo, I may have a second chance at victory. But enough talk, let's dive deep and take a look at exactly what we're working with. First up, 3 copies of Blue Tang. Blue Tang is best girl for the deck. She's our starter that we always want to see in our opening hand. On summon, she foolishes out another Marincess monster. Not only that, but when she's used as link material for a water monster, she lets us dig a little deeper into our deck by excavating 3 and adding a Marincess card from among them to our hand. Next, I'm also running 3 copies of Pascalus, as she's our other prime starter. She's essentially a marauding captain for the archetype. On summon, she brings out another Marincess from hand. She can also banish herself from the grave to add a Marincess spell or trap from grave to hand. She just can't use this particular ability the turn that she's sent to the graveyard. Our last 3 of Marincess is Sea Horse. She's our best extender, as she has 2 ways to extend our plays. The first way is the most commonly used one. Once per turn, she can special summon herself from hand to a zone a Marincess monster points to. Like Pascalus, she can also banish herself from grave, just not the turn she's been sent, and by doing so, I can special summon another Marincess from hand to a zone a Marincess monster points to. Our last Marincess monster is Mandarin, of which we run only 2 copies. She's our other extender, but she's a bit trickier to use than Sea Horse, so that's why I'm only running the 2. Whether she's in hand or grave, as long as we control at least 2 Marincess monsters, we can special out Mandarin to a zone a water link points to. She does banish herself when she leaves the field, but that's a small price to pay considering how many ways we have to recycle resources in this deck. The rest of our monster lineup are generic Cybers/water extenders. So we're running 2 copies of Formud Skipper. This little guy is essentially another Marincess name. Why not just run more Marincesses instead of this guy? Well, when he's sent to the grave, we can add a level 5 or higher Cybers from deck to hand. Our only target for this effect is another extender, so we run the Skipper to keep our plays going. He's also level 1, like Mandarin, meaning we have enough targets to warrant running 1 for 1. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Scrypton is just a one-of, since we can search him off of Skipper. By banishing a Cybers from grave, he can special himself from hand. A simple extender who can help trigger our boss's effects, since we actually need our stuff banished. Besides that, he can shuffle a banished card back into the deck once he's been used as link material. This is good for recycling link monsters that have been banished so that we can resummon them later. Next, we're running a pretty tight frog package to help make Totally Awesome. A water deck without Toad seems like it's missing something now. So Triple Swap Frog can extend himself to the board while filling our grave with fodder. Ronintoadin can keep reviving himself once we have sufficient Swap Frogs in the grave. Both of these cards are old at this point, meaning they don't have a once per turn clause, so we can abuse them a bunch with our revival options. Triple Ash and Triple Belle are my hand traps of choice, since I figure them to be the most generically useful ones. These aren't our only hand traps, but they are our only monster ones. There's a reason we run so many hand traps in this deck overall, but I'll get to that in a little bit. For now, we're moving on to spells. Triple Cynet Mining gives this deck a lot of consistency. The only downside is the discard as cost, but this can be circumnavigated by pitching cards that have graveyard effects, like Sea Horse, Mandarin, and Pascalus. 1 for 1 fetches us either Skipper or Mandarin, and is great ash bait, as we aren't completely reliant on the summon of either of those 2 monsters. So once Ash is gone, we can start our real plays. Reborn the Monster is a generic extender for link climbing. Burial of the Foolish is a generic deck thinner that serves many uses. Upstart Goblin turns this into a 39 card deck improving our consistency that much more. This deck has many different combo lines depending on what our opponent is doing, but there are still some bread and butter plays that we want to make no matter what. Consistency is key here. Called By helps us against those pesky hand traps and other graveyard shenanigans. Finally, 2 copies of Marincess Battle Ocean. Unlike other modern archetypal field spells, this one doesn't immediately grant advantage upon activation. Instead, it acts as, I feel, a continuous card should, by providing a passive effect that benefits over time. Battle Ocean provides a minor buff to all Marincess monsters' attacks, and a much more significant attack buff to those who have equip cards. This sounds a bit weird, but don't worry, we do have ways of equipping our gals. In fact, it also involves this field. Whenever we link summon a Marincess to the extra monster zone, we can equip her with up to 3 Marincess link monsters from our grave. The last effect of Ocean is that if we link summon a Marincess using Crystal Heart, that monster becomes a Towers, completely unaffected by our opponent's card effects. This means that, aside from Kaijus, the only way they can really get over our deck mommy is through battle, which isn't likely given the extreme power boost that we get from the equip spells. The only other way of circumventing this problem is to eliminate the Battle Ocean itself, so Spell and Trap Hate is a big bane for us. Herein lies why I'm running 2 copies of the field. Although we can search and reuse 1 copy a lot, if it ever gets banished, we'd still need a second copy in order to achieve our primary win condition. Finally, let's close this up with our traps. 3 copies of Imperm and 3 copies of Better Imperm. That's right, Marincess possess an N-archetype Imperm that's even stronger. Imperm is still quite useful considering it's more lenient on its activation requirements. But Marincess Wave provides the same effect as Imperm, negating a face-up monster's effects for the turn. However, we need to control a Marincess Link monster. But if we have a Link 2 or higher, all our face-up monsters become Towers for the turn. The sheer amount of protection this provides is insane. Finally, like Imperm, this can also be a hand trap, so long as we at least have a Link 3 Marincess on field. So a searchable, reusable Imperm that provides protection to our monsters, what's not to love here? Phew, alright, that's the main deck down. Now, let's see what we're striving to make by looking at the abyss that is our extra deck. We run almost exclusively Link monsters, so let's start from the small and work our way up. 2 copies of Blue Slug. She's almost always the first extra deck card that we make. Upon summon, she replenishes the resource used to make her. She doesn't seem like that much, but in my follow-up video where I go over our combos, you'll see just how much we use her. I run 2 because even though we have ways of reusing her, it's much easier just to make a second copy on subsequent turns, rather than jump through 1 or 2 hoops in order to get her back into the extra deck. 1 copy of Sea Angel. This card gets better when the new Marincess support hits in a few months, but for now we just use her as a way to search our Battle Ocean. Essentially, she's terraforming on legs. Moving on to Link 2s, 2 copies of Coral Anemone. She can revive any low attack water monster, but doing so locks us into water for the turn. This isn't usually a problem, as almost every monster we run is water. She helps us link climb. Like with Blue Slug, I run a second copy so that I can go through my bread and butter play on the second turn in case my first turn board was broken. She also recurs a resource whenever she's sent to grave. This includes if she was treated as an equipped spell through the effect of Battle Ocean, so you'll always want to use her as one of the equipped monsters. Splash Mage is a lesser version of Anemone. Her arrows are a little awkward, and she locks us into Cyburst for the turn instead of water. But again, that's usually not that big of a deal. It just kinda shuts off our frog package. Crystal Heart is in here only for our Battle Ocean win condition, as she's not that great of a card on her own. We basically just play her because we have to. Link 3s include Marincess Marbled Rock. I'm not really digging the afro, but I have to admit the design is very clever using a sea urchin to simulate the hair. 2500 attack is pretty good, especially once you factor in the boosts from Battle Ocean. Like Anemone, she can recur a Marincess from grave to hand, but she also possesses an effect that lets us take advantage of extra Marincesses that are just chilling in our hand. When our opponent attacks, we can discard one to Wabaku that attack. Transcode Talker is easy to make, and further boosts our Link monster's attack values. Also, reviving a Cyberse Link is yet more extending. Shootingcode Talker is surprisingly good in this deck. Since he can point to 2 monsters at max, he can clear up to 3 monsters on our opponent's field. 2300 attack isn't the highest, but he can at least clear the board of some leftover weenies. The real draw is being able to, well, draw a card for each monster that he slays, which again can be up to 3 cards. Our 2 boss monsters are our Link 4s. Bubble Reef isn't that strong on her own, but the sheer amount of card advantage she can net us is insane. Also, she doesn't provide our opponent with any arrows, a rarity for most Link 4s I've seen. So, during each standby phase, we can banish a water from our field or grave, and draw a new card. Drawing during our opponent's turn is quite sweet, and drawing into a hand trap is even sweeter. Not only that, but once per turn, we can pitch a water monster from our hand to revive a banished Marincess. Again, we can just extend for days.
But wait! There's more!
2600 attack may not seem like a lot for a Link 4, but consider this. The boost from Battle Ocean and her own innate attack boosting ability? Yeah, that's right. Remember how Rika Teardrop from last week's deck profile could get stronger by tributing plants? Well, Bubble Reef puts her boost to shame by gaining 600 every time a monster is banished. So while our first turn Link play is almost always Bubble Reef, our follow-up Link 4 is Wonderheart. Though she doesn't grant us advantage like Bubble Reef, she can help us swarm and dish out some hefty damage, possibly closing out the game. Whenever she battles something, she could take an equipped Marincess and summon it out for the turn. Besides increasing our overall damage output, this can help us abuse Anemone since her effect isn't negated. Thus, we can revive something off of her effect in main phase 2 before she reattaches herself to Wonderheart. Besides all of this, if Wonderheart is destroyed, she'll replace herself with another Marincess from the graveyard that has a lower Link rating. I really wish this said leaves the field and not destroyed by an opponent's card effect, because the whole point in this deck is to create a tower style monster, meaning your opponent won't be able to destroy her, but I guess it is a nice fallback effect in case they out the Battle Ocean and then set their sights on Wonderheart. Our last 3 slots are Xyz monsters. These guys are just here for setting up additional negates. 1 Bahamut Shark, which can cheat out totally awesome, but we're running 2 copies of Toad, since we can hard make him if we need to. His main purpose is to interrupt our opponent, but we can also use him to special out an additional frog from deck if we make him early enough. Plus, he can recoup a resource whenever he hits the grave, keeping our supply of cards constantly stocked. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the deck. Like I said, I'll be doing a follow-up video going over the combos and general strategies. But for now, know that this deck is a ton of fun. I hate I hadn't discovered this archetype sooner. I'm a sucker for water decks, and I just really like how this deck can keep extending, create a super huge monster, and still be able to make a comeback if the opponent survives the first wave of onslaught. Just like a true water theme, this deck overwhelms the opponent with wave after wave of threats. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and be sure to check out the combos in the next vid. Trust me, they get crazy. Anyways, have a blessed day.